Life had been almost predictable and far too comfortable over the past few years. Hannah and I had been married for 6 years now, and while our relationship wasn't perfect, I believe we were in a good place. Work often buried me under deadlines, and her constant socializing sometimes made me uneasy, but we had our own rhythm. I thought Saturday nights were ours. We had an unspoken agreement to spend time together. But last weekend, she insisted on going to a party hosted by one of her work friends, Jack. "It's no big deal," she said, reassuring me like I was a child. "It's just a casual get-together. You should come. It'll be fun." The word fun lingered in the air like a promise I knew she couldn't keep, but I agreed anyway. I told myself I was supporting her, yet deep down, something felt off. Lately, Hannah had been glued to her phone, smiling at messages she never shared with me. Whenever I asked who it was, she gave vague answers, waving dismissively and saying it was Emma or that it was work-related. When we arrived at the party, she disappeared almost immediately into the crowd. Hannah had always been a social butterfly. Her laughter floated through the room like a melody above the clinking of glasses and lively chatter. I stayed in the kitchen, nursing a beer while watching her from afar. Something about her felt different. It wasn't just how she interacted with people. It was the way she scanned the room, as if searching for someone. And then she slipped outside. I told myself I was being paranoid, but the unease twisting in my chest refused to settle. So I followed her. The cool night air greeted me as I stepped onto the terrace, the backyard softly illuminated by strings of colored lights. Laughter rippled from the scattered crowd on the lawn, but Hannah wasn't among them. Then I heard it, her low, intimate laughter. I turned toward the far end of the yard and saw her, my wife, standing close to a man I didn't recognize. They were too close for it to be innocent. Her hand rested lightly on his chest, his arm draped casually around her waist. Their heads leaned in together, sharing a moment so private it felt like I was intruding. And then they kissed. The world around me froze. My heart pounded against my ribs. I stood there, motionless, time warping around me. The bottle in my hand slipped, hitting the ground with a muted thud. The sound shattered the illusion. Hannah's eyes darted around until they met mine. We stared at each other, her face pale with shock, mine contorted with fury. The man glanced between us, confused. I didn't wait for an explanation. Turning on my heel, I stormed back inside, my chest burning, my mind overflowed with questions I wasn't ready to face. Hannah didn't come home that night. The next morning, she finally returned, looking like she had aged overnight. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes swollen and red from crying. She stood on the porch, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "Jake," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please, let me explain." Explain? As if there were words that could justify what she had done. I didn't slam the door, at least not yet. Instead, I stepped aside, motioning for her to enter. The living room was a mess. An empty whiskey bottle sat on the coffee table, glasses left untouched from the night before. She hesitated, taking in the scene, but I didn't care about her discomfort. "Sit down," I ordered, my voice colder than I had intended. She obeyed, perching on the edge of the couch like a child awaiting punishment. I stood in front of her, arms crossed, looking down at the woman I thought I knew. The silence between us stretched unbearably, thick with unspoken accusations. Finally, I broke it. "Who is he?" She looked up sharply, eyes wide, as if she hadn't expected me to get straight to the point. "Jack, it's not what you think." "Don't interrupt." My voice was sharp enough to make her flinch. "Don't you dare tell me it's not what I think. I was there, Hannah. I saw you." Her face crumpled. For a moment, I thought she would confess. But instead, she buried her face in her hands and began to sob. The sound irritated me. "Stop crying." I snapped. "I'm not the victim here. I want answers. Who is he? How long has this been going on? Why did you think you could treat me like this?" She slowly lowered her hands, her face streaked with tears and smeared mascara. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "His name is Brandon. He works with me." I let out a bitter laugh. Of course. The classic office affair. She winced. How long? I demanded. She hesitated, briefly but tellingly. A few months, she admitted, her voice so soft I almost didn't catch it. A few months of deception. A few months of sneaking around while I worked overtime, thinking I was building a life for us. It's not like that, she cried. It didn't mean anything, Jake. I swear, it was a mistake. A mistake? I interrupted coldly. Forgetting an anniversary is a mistake. Burning dinner is a mistake. Cheating is a choice. One you made over and over again. Her sobs grew louder, and for the first time, I felt an odd sense of satisfaction. Good. Let her feel what she's done. Now what? She whispered, her voice shaking. I stared at her, the woman I thought I knew, realizing I had no answer. Our life, our future, everything we had built, felt shattered beyond repair. You're packing your bags, I said firmly. You're leaving. Her head shot up, panic flashing in her eyes. Jake, please don't do this. I raised a hand to cut her off. I need time to think. Right now. I don't even want to look at you. She opened her mouth to argue, but stopped herself. Without another word, she got up and disappeared into the bedroom. The sound of her suitcase zipping echoed through the walls. When she finally left, I didn't move. I stayed where I was frozen. The silence that followed was deafening. Not the peaceful kind that comes with solitude, but the kind that smothered the air with unspoken words and painful memories. I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the TV screen, replaying the events of the night over and over in my head. Hannah's laughter in the backyard. Brandon's hands on her waist. Their lips meeting, as if I didn't exist. By noon, the silence became unbearable. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I landed on Ryan's name. Ryan, my best friend since high school. The only person who could stop me from falling apart. The phone rang twice before he answered. Jake, what's up, man? His voice was casual, as if it were just another Saturday. She's gone, I said flatly. There was a pause. Gone? Wait, what happened? Did you guys have a fight? I swallowed hard. She cheated on me. I uttered the words, my tone devoid of emotion, and she bolted, off with some guy from the office. I had thrown her out this morning. Ryan muttered a curse under his breath. Damn, man. I'm really sorry. Do you want me to come over for a bit? I hesitated, considering it. No, I wasn't sure if I was ready to talk about it, if I could even find the words. But the idea of sitting alone for another hour made my chest constrict. Actually, yes. Half an hour later, Ryan arrived, a six-pack of beer in one hand and a bag of chips in the other. He didn't say anything, just gave me a nod before settling onto the couch beside me. We cracked open the beers and sat in silence. Not the suffocating kind, but a companionable one, like a lifeline tossed into stormy waters. Eventually, Ryan broke the quiet. Do you want to tell me what happened? I ran a hand through my hair. I saw her at the party last night. She was with a guy. I saw them kissing. Ryan let out a low whistle. Did she try to deny it? No chance, I responded bitterly. I left before she could say anything. She came home crying this morning, begging me to let her explain. But what is there to explain? It's over. I don't even know what to say. We sat in silence again, the hum of the TV filling the void. I could feel Ryan watching me from a corner of his eye, waiting for me to break down or say more. But I didn't. I couldn't. What are you going to do? He finally asked. I don't know. I admitted. I let her go, but everything feels unfinished. 7 years. 7 years, and this is how it ends. It doesn't have to end like this, Ryan said carefully. I'm not saying you should forgive her, but people make mistakes. Maybe there's something worth salvaging. I shook my head, my anger flaring. Forgetting my birthday was a mistake. Burning dinner was a mistake. This wasn't a mistake. This was a decision, one she made over and over again. Ryan didn't argue. He just nodded and took another sip of his beer. After he left, I was alone in the living room, my gaze landing on our wedding photo on the mantel. Hannah's smile had once been so genuine, her eyes filled with love and devotion. Now it felt like a cruel joke, a snapshot of a time that no longer existed. I grabbed the frame and turned it face down. The next morning, it hit me like a freight train. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her and Brandon laughing, whispering, kissing under the midday sun. I realized I couldn't just sit there, drowning in misery. Hannah's laptop sat on the desk in our shared office. Its screen dark, deceptively innocent. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitant. What was I searching for? Answers? Proof? A confession? Deep down, I wished for something, anything, that could still be salvaged. But I found none. Her emails were the first clues, hidden within folders labeled as work projects. My stomach twisted as I read them. Last night was incredible. Find a way to see me soon. The lies she'd spun were laid out in black and white. Meetings that never happened. Late nights at the office that were nothing more than an excuse to be with him. Then I found her diary, buried in the drawer of her bedside table, its leather cover untouched. I flipped through it, my heart pounding, until I reached the latest entry. I saw him again today. Brandon. Being with him makes me feel alive. But the guilt is suffocating. Jake doesn't deserve this. I don't know what's wrong with me, why I can't stop. The words cut through me like shards of broken glass. She felt alive with him, and all I felt was hollow. The emails, the texts, the receipts from their secret rendezvous. It was all there, a meticulously documented betrayal. And she hadn't even cared enough to hide it properly. That night, Hannah texted me. Her message was desperate. Jake, can we talk? My reply was brief. Not now. I need time. But one thing was clear. I wouldn't let her escape the consequences. When I confronted her, she collapsed into heaving sobs, covering her face with her hands. Why do you need me to say it? Why isn't it enough that I regret it? Her voice was muffled, broken. It's not about you. I know it sounds like I'm avoiding responsibility, but it's the truth. I don't know. I lost my mind. I was stupid. I made a mistake. The word mistake ignited my fury. I grabbed the diary off the table and slammed it down with force, the sound echoing in the tense silence. A mistake? That's what you keep calling it? As if it were an accident? As if every single time you chose him over me didn't matter? Her sob became more frantic, but I felt nothing, no pity, no sympathy. Only a cold, unyielding numbness that had gripped me since the moment I caught her. I never thought it would turn out like this, she whispered. But it did. I shot back. And now you have to deal with the consequences. Hannah looked up at me, her tear-streaked face filled with anguish, her eyes silently pleading for forgiveness. What happens now? She asked, her voice trembling. I stared at the woman I had once loved beyond reason, and felt the weight of the moment settle over me. We're done, I said, my voice steady but cold. I'm filing for divorce. You can pack your things and leave. This is no longer your home. She recoiled as if struck. Tears slid down her cheeks, her head shaking in denial. Jake, please, don't do this. I'll make it up to you. I'll do anything. Just don't give up on us. You had your chance, I said, cutting off her last shred of hope, and you threw it away. Now you have to live with that. She lingered for another hour, pleading, bargaining, searching for a crack in my resolve. But there was none. I had made up my mind, and there was no going back. When she finally walked out the door, her suitcase in hand, the weight in my chest lessened slightly. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. The life we had built was gone, shattered beyond repair. But I was still standing. And for now, that was enough.